We have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti podcast. To perceive something holistically, that is, to perceive without time, is to have a mind that is global, to see humanity as a whole. Hello and welcome to episode 285 of Urgency of Change. The Krishnamurti podcast features carefully selected extracts from Krishnamurti's recorded talks. Each episode highlights his different approaches to universal and timeless themes that affect our everyday lives, the state of the world, and the future of humanity. This episode's theme is Holism. Upcoming themes are activism and social change, discovery, and suffering. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust based at Brockwood Park in the UK, which is also home to the Krishnamurti Retreat Centre. Situated in the beautiful countryside of the South Downs National Park, the Krishnamurti Centre offers retreats individually and in groups. The focus is on inquiry in light of Krishnamurti's teachings. Please visit krishnamurticentre.org.uk for more information, including our volunteer programme. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app. This episode on Holism has 5 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's 6th talk in Saanen, 1977, and is titled Seeing Holistically.
Order can only come about holistically. Right? Please see the importance of this. We need order. Even in a very small room, you have to put things in their place, otherwise it becomes terribly disorderly, ugly, rather dirty. As most rooms are. Sorry. And we think order is following a certain pattern, following a certain conclusion, following certain order which you have already established in the past and keep on in that routine. I think order is something entirely different. Order can only come about when there is clarity. Clarity brings order, not the other way around. If you put it the other way around, which is try to seek order, then that becomes mechanistic. Naturally. Repetition, a conformity to a pattern which you have established for yourself in the room or outside the room or inside yourself. Order, as we said, can only come about through clarity. Clarity to observe without any distortion. As we went into the other day, very carefully, so I won't go into it again, if you don't mind. Order implies harmony. in daily life. Harmony is not an idea, because we are already prisoners of ideas. We are caught in the prison of ideas. And therefore there is no harmony in that. Harmony implies clarity, which is to see things holistically, to see, observe life as a total unitary movement. Right? Can we do this? You understand my question? Can one observe life or observe one's living, which is life, as a total whole movement of life? Not I am a businessman and I am different at home, or I am an artist and I can do the most absurd things, eccentricism, all that follows. This breaking or fragmenting life into various categories. The elite and the non-elite, the worker and the non-worker, the intellectual and the non-intellectual, the romantic, the emotional, the politician, the politics, and which is our whole way of living. Now, can we see how important it is to see this life as a total movement in which everything is included, in which there is no breaking down, as the good and the bad and heaven and hell. Right? It is only possible, no, I will put it this way. Can one observe what it means to see holistically? Can one see holistically anything? Right? When you observe your friend or your wife or your girl or your boy, husband, can you see holistically in that relationship? I wonder, right? Are you following him? Right? Is that possible? It is possible only when there is no accumulated remembrances which become the image. Right? In any relationship, there is accumulated remembrances, incidents, which definitely leave a mark on the mind, on the brain. And therefore, you always look at somebody or your wife and so on, fragmentarily. Now, can we, serious, wanting to find a different way of living in our daily life, is it possible to look at another in a relationship, intimate or not intimate, as a whole? Please do it now as we are talking. You are married, you've got girls and you've got boys, you've got a husband, wife and all the rest of it, uncle, aunt, whatever it is. Can you look at another as a whole? Which means not having any remembrances or conclusions about another. Therefore, holistically, to observe holistically implies freedom. Right? We're getting on. we think freedom is something from something else, right? To be free implies, generally, as it's understood, I'm free from my sorrow, from my anxiety, and from my work or whatever it is, which is really a reaction, isn't it? Therefore, it's not freedom at all. When a man says, I'm free from smoking, I hope you don't smoke, any of you, because it's very bad for one's health. That's up to you. When one says, I'm free from smoking, it is a response from what has been, moving away from what has been. But we're talking of freedom, which is not from something, which means to observe holistically. Right? Get it? Get it? So, we are going to talk about something which demands your careful attention. That is, to observe freely, holistically, means there is no fragmentation or direction in observation. Right? There is no freedom when there is direction. When there is direction, there is distortion. It's only when there is complete freedom you can observe holistically. And therefore, in that observation, there is no satisfaction. And therefore there is no illusion. You get it? Step by step we are going to it. So, can one observe life as a total movement, non-fragmented, but holistic, flowing continuously not in the sense of time. I wonder, right? When one uses the word continuous, it implies time, right? But there is a continuity which is not of time. I'm going to go into that a little bit. Are you excited about it as I am? I'm getting into it. When one talks about continuity, it is of time because a thing that has been and that will be, the relationship is between the past and the future as a continuity, without breaking up, right? That's what we generally understand by word continuity, which is of time, right? Time is movement from here to there. Time implies distance, to be covered through days or months or years, or as an idea to be achieved. All that implies a movement, right? Time implies thought, of course. So, thought is movement in time, or thought is the movement of time, right? Therefore, it is a movement of measure, right? This is reason saying, but is there a continuity, if we can use that word, which isn't perhaps quite right, but we'll use it for the moment. Is there a continuity which is not a series of incidents related to the past, and therefore the cause becomes the effect, and the effect becomes the cause, which is continuity, right? Now we're asking, is there a state of being in which there is an ending, there is an ending to, there is a coming to an end to everything. That is, because I say I'm discovering something, I want to talk about death. You'll see in a minute. We think life is a movement in time and to be measured, and this movement ends with death. That is what we call continuity. There is, one observes, a movement which is not of time, which is not a remembrance of something going through the present, modified and continues. There is a state of mind which is dying to everything that's happening, coming in and flowing out. You understand? Not retaining, flowing out. There is never any retention, but always flowing out. Right? That has its own sense of beauty and, if I may use the word in quotes, continuity, which is not of time. Now, are we working this out together? Otherwise, it has no meaning. There's no fun in my talking about it. There's fun only when we can communicate with each other and each of us are doing it together. It's like playing cricket or football or any game. Together we have to do this. Not I do it and then tell you and you copy it, or try to find out what it means. But if we do it together, it is all the time active. Right? So, we are asking, is there a way of living which is only from moment to moment, without any retention, which is memory and so on? Is there a way of living in which how shall I put this? I want to communicate, therefore I must find because communication implies, listen to this, communication implies compassion, clarity and skill, which is verbal skill to communicate. If there is compassion and clarity, skill will inevitably come about. Not the other way around. I want to tell you something very deep. And I must have the skill to tell you. The words, the means of communication. But that communication remains only verbally when there is no compassion and clarity. Intellectually, one can cleverly argue this out, logically, sanely, objectively. But it remains at a very, very superficial level. But when there is communication, when with compassion, clarity, skill is easy. I don't know if you follow all this. So, I want to communicate, the speaker wants to communicate with you whether life is possible, whether it is possible to live a life which is totally holistic, right? Not fragmented. Therefore, no you and me, right? No we and they, my country, your country, my God, your, all that's God, right? Are you doing it? As we are talking, are we together doing it? As I said, we are playing a tremendous game. Therefore, if you don't take your part in it, you're out of the game. If one of the football players doesn't play properly, he goes out. So this is a game in which life is involved, right? Our whole life. Therefore, you have to partake in this game. So we are asking together if it is possible to live a life that is holistic, without any fragmentation. And that fragmentation exists when there is a desire to and satisfy, which creates illusion. Therefore, you're not playing the game. You're out of the game. If you say, I've come here to find, to understand you, the speaker, then you're out of the game. You're not understanding me. You're understanding the whole of human existence, which is you. You are the representative of all humanity. Therefore, you have to take part holistically in the game. Right? Now, is that possible? I say it is possible only when you see exactly what is, right? Without any distortion. If you are angry, see it as it is. Not try to suppress and all the rest of it. When you are jealous, anxiety, suffering, anything, to observe holistically, and that's possible only when you live with suffering completely. Not to go beyond it, not to seek comfort, not to escape from it. When you completely, totally live with something, then there is no distortion. Right? And out of that observation holistically comes clarity. Right? Do it. Please do it as we are talking. And for us, life, as we said, is a movement in time. I was born so many years ago, I'm growing until I die. There is this constant movement of remembrances, registration, retention, action, and from that action, learn, store it up, and so on. And we are saying that movement is of time. And that movement is brought about by thought, which is time. And thought being limited, a fragment, thought can never see holistically. Though we have cultivated religiously, through education and so on, thought. Thought becomes an extraordinary thing in our life. Therefore, thought is always fragmentary. Why? Because it is born out of memory, out of knowledge, out of experience, stored up in the brain. So, whatever is stored up in the brain is the past. Therefore, it is limited. Therefore, it's not therefore it's fragmentary, not holistic.
The second extract is from the first seminar meeting at Rishi Valley in 1983 and is titled Holistic Education.
The other day, when we were in California, a car in front of us, on the bumper, was a sticker. You know what that is? On the sticker, it said, "Question all authority." You know, to see that on a bumper in California just a month and a half ago is an extraordinary thing. Here, tradition, authority plays a tremendous part. Nobody questions, nobody doubts the political authority, the religious authority, the authority of any so-called religious books, the authority of the parents, the authority of our own knowledge. So our minds, or rather, our brains are conditioned. Conditioned not only in the West according to their particular culture, according to their environment, to their religions and so on, by their literature. In this country too, the brain is conditioned as Hindus. They belong to various categories of social structure. Conditioned by religion, by authority of religion, by tradition, by environment, by the food one eats and clothes and so on. So our brains are conditioned. That's a fact. By knowledge. And one asks, what's the point of all this marvelous education? If one is a parent, and you must be, why are you educating your children? To conform to all this? To have a life of endless conflict? And if you say that's the nature of man, that he must struggle. Through struggle you progress, which is such utter nonsense. And you say, trees struggle towards the light. But we human beings who have lived on this unfortunate earth, which was slowly and carefully destroying, we are supposed to use our brains to be little more intelligent than the animal. And we, using our brains, if we use them at all, have come to this state, to the present state. Wars, conflict, unhappiness, anxiety, ridden with fear, pursuing pleasure, and the burden of sorrow. This is our life. One may not like to face it, one rather avoids it, but it's there, like a perpetual wound, like a disease. And we have become so accustomed to it. We put up with anything, especially in this country. Any kind of politics, any kind of corruption, callousness, you know all the rest of it. You see it all around you. So, we'll come back to the same point. What are we educating them for? They pass exams, acquire knowledge in a particular field, and get a job. And the parents are only interested in that. Get a job, get married, be safe. And there is the whole world which is totally neglected. The world which is the psychological realm, the inward life, you totally neglect. You stuff them with extraordinary information about matter, about physics, and so on, so on. But never pay attention to what is going on in the human psyche. Is not, we are asking most respectfully, aren't we concerned with the whole development of man, the holistic approach? Not one-sided approach. but be concerned with the whole cultivation of the human being. Scientists are saying there is the left side and the right side of the brain. Right side of the brain has never been used. It's there. On the left side is all the rest of it. Again, there is this division. We divide everything. Not that there is not division between man and woman, between these beautiful trees and ourselves. But we never have asked, as we are asking now, if I may, is it possible to use the whole brain? Not one part of it. A holistic approach to life. Not the approach of thought which is divisive, because it is limited. And so we're asking, could we educate our children not merely to become technicians, electronic experts and so on, but also to go very deeply into oneself. Because that world is limitless. And if that world is not understood and lived, not words don't matter, but lived, which demands great integrity, honesty. From that world, the outer can bring about a change, but not from the outer to the inner. That's what the communists are doing. That's what the socialists are doing. That's what the Democrats are doing. They are hoping by changing the outer, they are going to change the inner structure, nature of human beings. But we are saying the contrary. That's the understanding the depth of life, the beauty, the goodness, and so on. Inwardly, to understand by watching in our relationship what we are and penetrating deeper and deeper without analysis. It becomes very difficult. I won't go into all that. Analysis, briefly, analysis implies the analyzer. Is the analyzer different from that which is analyzing? Of course not. You follow? The analyzer is part of thought. And the analyze is also part of thought. So he's playing a game with himself all the time. So we are saying that requires much, that's not the point for the moment. We are saying the analyzer is the analyzed, the observer, the one who witnesses is the observed, is that which he is witnessing. There is no division between the two. Because the present is both the past and the future. I'm sorry, that leads us to another direction. So is it possible to educate our children, the students in this school, in other schools connected with this school, to bring about a holistic approach to life? And that demands affection, love. Don't get bored by that word. One asks if that feeling exists at all. Whether we actually love our children. Love. Not dominate, not tell them what to do. That comes a little later. But do we really love our children? Not love is different from sentimentality. Love is different from devotion. Where there is love, there is responsibility. And to have this holistic education implies great affection, love. And where there is love, there is intelligence, not the cunning intelligence of thought.
The third extract is from the first question and answer meeting in Ojai 1981 and is titled Holistic Perception.
We are observing our own minds and our own hearts, our own existence, our daily life as we live it. So the questioner says, what is the difference between the mind and the brain? What is the relationship between the two? Is there something separate as the mind, apart from the brain? Or there is only the brain which has created the mind and then tries to establish a relationship between the two, which is a game it can play everlastingly. You follow on? Right? That is, the brain realizes its limitation because it's conditioned, everlastingly in conflict and all the rest. So, the brain, thought is the instrument of the brain, so it invents a mind, supermind. Right? Super consciousness. And then tries to establish a relationship between the two. I don't know if you're following the game it plays. So we are asking, is there a mind which is not brought about by thought as a comforting idea apart from the brain? You're following all this? Most of us, I'm afraid, are so emotional, and react so quickly that we don't use reason. Somehow reason seems to be wrong. So we are understanding what reason, the limitation of reason first, and see if we can't go beyond it. I wonder, right? Does one see the limitation of reason? However reasonable it is, it's limited, obviously. First, so, we must exercise reason. sanity. Not just be emotional about any matter. So, there is the brain, which is conditioned, whose instrument is thought. Thought is brought about through various sensations, experiences, knowledge, memory, thought, action. That's the chain the brain lives with, or lives in that chain, within that area. And knowledge can never be complete. Knowledge must always go with ignorance, always. There's no complete knowledge about anything. So man realizes this, and projects an idea of God. So God is omnipotent, you know the rest of it. I wonder if you're following with this. So, is there a mind apart from the brain? And is the brain infinite? Brain is infinite if it is free from all conditioning, obviously. Am I merely spinning a lot of words? Are we following each other? Are we doing it for yourself? As long as the brain is conditioned in any shape or at any level, at any depth, it must be limited. And when that limitation, restriction, confinement, condition is totally eliminated, disappears completely, then brain is infinite. This is reason, isn't it? The capacity to perceive wholly, holistic perception is not possible if the brain is limited, right? If the brain is prejudiced. Well, all right, let's put it much more simply. If you are prejudiced, your thinking is always limited, right? And this prejudice is the result of one's conditioning, right? And that conditioning limits the capacity of the brain. If I'm a surgeon for the rest of my life, I've spent 10 years in the world of medicine, surgery, and I've specialized in that, right? My brain is limited. It cannot have a holistic perception. Even the scientists who talk about holistic perception, if they are conditioned, which is fear, nationality, jealousy, and all the rest of it, as most of them are, their brain is limited, right? And therefore, they are incapable of holistic perception, though they're right about it. You understand what? So, the holistic perception is possible only when there is total elimination of conditioning. And man says that's not possible. You follow? Somebody comes along and says, it is possible. If you go very carefully, step by step, you understand? Understand it very deeply. So, the mind, this will come rather difficult. The brain, as it is now, is limited by its own conditioning, by its own desire to be completely safe, secure in relationship, in job, secure. Because it feels it can function only when there is complete security, right? That is, if I'm a first-class surgeon and I'm secure in that, the brain functions happily. You understand what I'm talking? Of course, this reason. So the brain is limited in its action. And is it possible to perceive something holistically apart from the brain? You understand, this becomes wrong. Have you ever perceived anything wholly? Please investigate a little bit. To perceive something wholly is to not let the word, the image, the symbol interfere with perception. Right? Let's begin with that. Can we look at a tree that, without calling it a tree, right? We can. Because the word tree is not that. We have used the word tree to symbolize or to use the word tree to communicate a certain object. And so our brain is conditioned by words. I wonder, right? But not, and so can one be free of the word to look? See this show? That's fairly easy, to look at that without the word. That's fairly easy. But to look at ourselves without the word is much more complex. Because we live by words. I'm an American, I'm a Catholic, word. And the content of that word. The word by itself, it means nothing, but thought has given the content to that word. I wonder if all this. So to perceive something holistically, that is to perceive without time, is to have a mind that's global. To see humanity as a whole. Not I am identified with humanity, which is silly, but to see the humanity with all its struggle, pain, anxiety, misery, joy, pleasure, the travail that human beings go through as a human whole. I think that's part of the mind. The holistic perception is the mind. I won't go much more deep, that's enough for the moment. So the relationship between the mind and the brain can only take place when the brain is equally infinite, which is when it's free from its conditioning.
The fourth extract is from Krishnamurti's sixth talk in Ojai 1977 and is titled Holistic Action.
We live by action. All our life is action. Action according to a motive, action according to an ideal, according to a pattern, or action habitual, traditional, without any investigation. So we're going to ask ourselves, what is action? Because a mind that is in meditation must find this out. What is action? You're following all this? I wonder if it interests you, all this. Because this is a very serious matter, all this. We are here not to spend a pleasant morning under the trees, but rather to investigate into the things of our life. One of the major problems in our life is conflict in ourselves. And from that conflict, all kinds of neurotic activities go on. And to end conflict and therefore end neurotic action becomes very important. To have a sane mind, a mind that's healthy, a mind that's not neurotic, caught in beliefs and fears, and so on. So we are saying, we are investigating conflict and the ending of conflict. And also we are asking now, what is action? Because we live by action. When you go to the factory, when you go to your office, when you talk, when you walk, everything is action. Life is action. So, when you are asked, what is action? And how do you act? According to what principle? According to what quality or state of mind from which you act. Please investigate it together. You generally act from memory. The memory which has set a pattern, which has become habit, routine, which is based on remembrance, and that remembrance being pleasant, and act according to that which is pleasant. Right? Or act on reward or punishment. Right? You're following all this? Reward and punishment. Or you act according to an idea, an ideal. Having an ideal, you say, I will carry that ideal out in daily life. Or you have a certain ambition and try to fulfill that ambition. So are these various types of action. So each of these actions are incomplete, fragmented. Each action is not whole, holistic. Do you understand this? If I go to the office every morning for the next 50 years, I'm a businessman. Thank God I'm not, but I'm a businessman. Or a lawyer, doctor, some kind of professional careerist. Therefore, my actions are divided, right? Do you see this? Divided, fragmented. I'm a businessman, and I come home, and I love my children, but when I'm a businessman, there I don't love anybody. I want profit, etc., etc. So, my actions are divided, fragmentary. So, when there is a fragmentary action, it must inevitably bring conflict, psychologically. So, we are asking, is there an action, please listen to this, is there an action which has no conflict? You understand my question? So we are going to find out together. We're going to investigate into this question whether there is an action in which there are no regrets, no failures, no sense of frustration, and therefore an action which is whole, harmonious, complete, holistic. But first, we must see very clearly that our actions are fragmentary in our life. I may be a scholar, a painter, but my life, though I'm an excellent sculptor, my life is sorry. I'm ambitious, greedy, wanting money, position, recognition, fame. So there's contradiction. And hence, where there's contradiction, there must be conflict. And that's where you live. I may be a priest, but I'm burning inside to become a bishop. This pattern goes right through the world. And where there is division in action, there must inevitably be conflict. That's law. So, we are trying to find out if there is an action which is whole and never contradictory. Therefore, an action that does not bring about tension, division, and all the rest. So we must find out what is action, right? Not action in a particular field contrary to other part of the field. Therefore, one has to see what one is actually doing, how one actually is living. Living a contradictory life, contradictory action, and therefore conflict. You must see that. You must become aware of it. Right? Are you aware of this fact that you, as a human being, live actively and each action contradicts other actions? Are you aware of this fact? If you are completely aware, then what takes place? You understand my question? Suppose I live a contradictory actions, live in contradictory actions. And you tell me, be aware of it. Right? What do you mean by being aware of it? I ask. Awareness is not possible when you choose, when you say, well, I like that particular action, I would like to keep that, and please help me to avoid all other actions. You follow? Which are contradictory to what I like. You follow what I'm saying? Therefore, that is not awareness, that is choosing a particular action which is most satisfactory, most comforting, most gratifying, rewarding, and all the rest of it. And I say, please let me hold to that and help me not to have contradictory actions with regard to that. That is not awareness. You understand? Where there is choice in awareness, there is no complete, total, holistic awareness. So I'm asking you, are you aware of this fact that your whole life is lived in contradiction with contradictory actions? Without any choice, just to be aware what it actually is. Then if you're actually aware of it, there's no problem, is there? I wonder if you see this. We'll go into it a little later. So, I'm coming back to it. We are saying that there is an action which is continuous without any break. Do you see this? Our actions are broken and therefore contradictory, changing. But we are saying there is an action which is continuous and therefore holistic, whole. The word whole means to have good health physically. It means also to have a mind that is sane. Sanity implies not being committed to any particular form of belief, dogma, church, nothing. Sane, which is capable of reason, logic, and therefore able to think clearly, directly, objectively. That is sanity. But neurotic mind cannot think logically, sanely. Therefore, holistic mind, the word whole means having a good health, sane mind, and also the word whole means holy, sacred. All that is implied when we use the word holy, whole. So, we are saying there is an action which has no break in it. And therefore, a movement that is holistic, whole,
The final extract in this episode is from the second talk in New York, 1982, and is titled, Love is Holistic.
Next thing we ought to consider together is what is love? Love has become pleasure. Love has become desire. Is love desire? Is love pleasure? Or love is a totally different movement. We're going to observe and learn, if we can, what is love. The more we get sophisticated, more technologically advanced, socially become more cultured, apparently love goes out of the window, because there is no love in our society, in ourselves. We talk about it, we write about it, but actually in our heart and minds, there is not that quality and that perfume of that great thing in our life. So what is love then? Is love the pleasure of sex? Is love the pleasure of some kind of fulfillment? Is love dependence? Is love attachment? Is love something to be remembered? So all that comes to the point, is love desire? Is love pleasure? And to discover or to come upon that perfume, that extraordinary thing that man has apparently avoided, has not realized, one can approach it only through negation. To negate what is not is the most positive action. The positive is not the opposite of the negative. To deny completely what is not love, which is violence, anger, jealousy, attachment, is not love. And when you negate all that, through negation, then the positive is. That is, through negating what is not love, love is. But to negate does not require will. Will is the essence of desire. And to come upon that which is necessary utterly in our life, one has to negate totally all self-centered activity. And then only that which is love blossoms into compassion. Compassion cannot exist if you are attached to any particular theory, to any particular belief, to any particular religious organization. That if you are, then that is pity. Then you work socially and so on. Compassion has its own intelligence. So, if one goes into this question very deeply. And I hope we are doing this together. Then, out of that love, whatever you do is right, correct, true. For love is holistic, it is not divisive.